All right, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 2 of the Between the Lines podcast between me, Daniel, and my partner.
Michael, it's good to be back.
And yes, sir. And this week we're going to be covering week 2 of a busy NFL slate around this weekend. A lot of great games, injuries that we'll be covering, and just overall news, what happened between Carolina and Arizona this past weekend. So really excited about our second episode this for today, and we're hyped to be talking about it. So let's just start off with the fantastic game between the New York Giants and the Dallas Cowboys. And Michael, I'm gonna let you take this one to start, give your thoughts and opinions and what you thought about it, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, first off, glad to be back, man. I'm excited to be back. Week 2, episode 2, long NFL season. It's going to be a good one. A lot of, like you said, a lot of good games this week. Was very impressed with the Giants Cowboys game. You know, two NFC East rivals dueling it out in Dallas. Um, you know, two high-powered offenses. There wasn't really no defense in that game. Except towards the end in overtime. The Giants had 506 yards of offense, and Dallas had 478 yards of offense. So, two high-powered offenses showed this week. Russell Wilson really shined. A guy who had
Yeah,
a kind of a target on his back. They was talking about maybe even putting in Jackson Dart this week or Jackson Dart really soon, but I think Russell quieted the haters for now at least. 30 for 41, 450 yards passing.
yeah,
450 yards passing on 30 completions is absolutely ridiculous. And only to throw 11 incompletions is even more impressive. Three touchdowns, of course, the one interception that was thrown in overtime that would lead to Dallas getting in field goal range for Brandon Aubrey to show how talented he is as a kicker. Obviously that was maybe a miscommunication between him and Malik Neighbors, kind of just chucking it up there on third down. He kind of, so to say, punted the ball, but 450 yards passing is pretty impressive, especially for a guy who's been bounced around the league past few years. First year in New York, first year under Brian Dable. I was very impressed to see him. Obviously, we watched the game together at Buffalo Wild Wings. It was pretty impressive to see all the fans interact. It was hooting and hollering the whole time. But Dak shined as well. I'm not gonna lie, Dak came out 38 for 52, 361 yards passing, along with two touchdowns and an interception. Both their wide receiver ones showed out just like we thought they would. Malik Neighbors, 9 receptions, 167 yards. That's 18.6 yards per catch. That is almost two first downs every catch from Malik Neighbors. He's a sure-handed guy. Just give him the ball. Also, CeeDee Lamb bought out again, another 100-plus yard receiving game, 9 receptions, 112 yards, 12.4 yards per catch for him. Um, some other guys really shined as well. For the Giants, Wandale Robinson really showed out this week. He looked really impressive.
oh yeah.
Cam Skataboo, the guy from Arizona State, man, the running back from Arizona State, really shined this week. Maybe could be a potential.
CTE.
Yes, yes, maybe could be a potential running back one, just depending on what Tyrone Tracy does the rest of the year. But obviously, they seem to love Cam Skataboo. Seems like they want to get Jackson Dart involved as well, maybe in like the run game at quarterback. Kind of mix it up, give different looks to the defenses. Javonte Williams looked really good for Dallas this week. I think he's became the clear running back one in Dallas, somebody who can
Yeah,
replace Rico Dowdle and maybe take that workload and really shine in Brian Schottenheimer's offense. And even Darius Slayton got involved a little bit for the Giants. Some Giants fans have been really frustrated with how he's produced the last few years. So to see him have that captain patch on and show up this week, had about two catches for almost 50 yards, pretty impressive for him. I think it was a great showing from both offenses. Both defensive coordinators are probably shaking their head this week, trying to figure out what to do in film today. But that's going to be a very impressive game to watch. I think it'll be a very interesting game to watch when they go to New York later on in the season. But I wouldn't put the Giants down for anything. Most people put the Giants last in the NFC East this year. I don't know if I'd put them there right now. I think they've really shown something this week that could maybe stick if Russell Wilson continues to strive like he is, find Malik Neighbors, and you kind of get Tyrone Tracy and Cam Scattaboo in the backfield going. I think it could be a good little showing up in New York.
Yeah, man. And this game like specifically caught me by surprise. Coming into, watching it, you're typically not expecting a high scoring game between, Dallas and New York, especially, when it's played in Dallas. But this game really is one of those games where it's why we watch, NFL football. You have the underdog New York Giants coming in on the road. No one was expecting them to win, and they come in and they put up a very high scoring, offensive, um, electric game. And Russell Wilson had a career day, and everyone was putting him down. Like you said, he was bouncing off from teams to team. And he had 450 passing yards, which is I think last year he had 414 against the Steelers. And so this is his, second straight season going over 400. And at one point, I thought he was going to hit 500, just the way he was lighting the defense up. Um, and the Giants are, one of those teams that can sneakily put up a fight. And so I feel like if they continue to, improve on the things that they need to do, like defense specifically, allowing that many points, I feel like if they can improve on that, then that's something to look forward to. They could be like, what Carolina was coming in last year towards the end of the year, having those really close games with, you know, playoff caliber teams. And so this game really was something that New York Giant fans can really look at and be excited about, going in, on the road and against a divisional rival, seeing Russ put up, that kind of stat line, seeing Wandale Robinson, have that kind of stat line from him, and finally seeing Malik Neighbors, and Russ get on the same page after a pretty disappointing game against Washington last week, seeing that connection get going. So you kind of expect good things going forward from now with Giants. And then on the Dallas side of things, I thought Dak played a little slow to start the game in the first half, but then as the game got going, he progressively, picked up the pace. 73% completion percentage, really good. Completed 38 out of 52 passes, so really high scoring affair. This is one of those games that I think I told you, could have been a match. Is already a match of the year contender. Um, and this is just something that a lot of NFL fans should just watch and be, happy that football is back. I think this game right here is a signal that NFL is back because this
Oh,
game
for
had
sure,
everything in it. So, so I was really, impressed with both teams. Scattaboo um, is the guy that I actually really like. Seeing what he did in Arizona State, he brings the physicality, man. I tell you,
for sure,
he is a powerhouse back that he does not care how many bodies are around him. He's gonna do anything he can to get that first down, to get that yard, 2 yards. He's gonna do everything he can. So I don't know, man. Scotty, if he continues to improve on the things, that he needs to do, I think he can potentially be, running back one for New York. Because
for
so
sure.
far through two games, I think he's been playing pretty good on the limited snaps that he's been having. So, but we'll see what happens. Um, but going forward for both teams, they obviously have concerns. Like we said last week, Dallas and their defense still needs to improve. Um, I think what surprised me from Dallas was Trayvon Diggs. He was consistently getting outran and blown coverages and whatnot, but he is coming back from injury, so I'll let that slide. But just something to look at if you're, a fan of Dallas. But on to our next topic is Cincinnati Bengals quarterback Joe Burrow, who suffered a turf toe injury against Jacksonville yesterday, in which he's expected to be out for 3 to 4 months, um, based off reports from what we're seeing. And so, I'm gonna let you get your take on this and what this can mean for the Cincinnati season. What do you expect from them and whatnot?
Yeah, like you said, Joe Burrow out 3 to 4 months. They're calling it a grade 3 turf toe injury. it is going to require surgery. So, um, like we talked about, Joe Burrow, I don't know if he's played a full season yet. Um, he's had injuries, seems to have an injury every year that kind of sets him back. Obviously he's put in the conversation of the best quarterback in the league every year, but we don't really get to see the full Joe Burrow that we want to see because of injuries like this. Just injuries that set him back 3 to 4 months aren't going to help him at all. He's getting paid big bucks, and the Cincinnati Bengals have went all in on his two wide receivers and T Higgins and Jamar Chase, and when they don't have a superstar caliber quarterback throwing to them, it kind of defeats the purpose, I guess you could say, to give them that money. You know what I'm saying? Obviously, they deserve that money, but if they have a guy like Jake Browning instead of Joe Burrow throwing to them, are they really getting the production and the looks they should be getting? You know what I'm saying? When you get Joe Burrow back there, he's gonna find you. He's gonna be able to read a defense. He's gonna be able to slice a defense up any which way. Jamar Chase obviously loves Joe Burrow. T Higgins does as well. So um, having him out for 3 to 4 months is going to be big for both of them. I want to see how they both react. I want to see how they both progress over the next few weeks. Obviously, they're two very good wide receivers, two guys worthy of the money they're getting. But it hurts having to give money to them guys, and they don't have their superstar quarterback throwing to them. Jake Browning came in yesterday. I wasn't mad about how he looked. 21 for 32, 241 yards, but he did have three interceptions thrown in the short tenure that he had in the game. Um, if Zach Taylor and the Cincinnati Bengals think he's the long term option with Joe Burrow out, he's going to have to clean up the picks, man. Three interceptions
Yeah,
in 3 quarters is not going to get it done, especially when you have the superstar power around you. Outside of Jamar Chase and T Higgins, you also have a guy in Mike Gesicki at tight end who's been a pretty darn good tight end, even in Miami he was. So if you have those guys around you, obviously I know your offensive line is not there. The last 5 years they've ranked below 28th in offensive line rankings, protection ratings. So obviously that has to do with Joe Burrow as well. His injuries come from having to take so many hits. Obviously yesterday was a sack, or he got rolled up, and now he's out 3 to 4 months. So the Bengals obviously love to invest in the guys, Trey Hendrickson. Um, they invested in Jamar Chase, T Higgins. They invested in both their wide receivers. They invested in a guard the other day, I'm pretty sure. And then of course Joe Burrow. If you're going to throw all the money at those guys, you have to get him some protection up front. 3 to 4 months is going to put him out until December. That could be end of the year, end of the NFL season. So you're going to have a guy back there who can lead you to a playoff chance just to get Joe Burrow back. He's not going to be back until about the playoffs, so he can't help you make the playoffs. You're going to have to find a guy back there you trust that can help you win some games, pull out the close ones like he did yesterday. Obviously, Jake Browning did. Maybe it was just a guy coming in, a lot of energy, different energy in the building. No film on him yet this year, so we'll see how Zach Taylor and the Bengals go along with this over the next few weeks. Obviously there's some backup quarterbacks in the NFL that could be wanted to be targeted. I've heard some names fly around. You've heard the Jameis Winston's and the even Shador Sanders. It's just some young quarterback or a veteran quarterback you can get in there who maybe is sitting behind a few people, and you can get him in there, and he's experienced. Jameis Winston seems like a likely option if they don't like Jake Browning, a guy who's played in the NFL, knows how to win ball games and come in as a backup and win. So we'll see how it goes over the next few weeks for the Bengals. Obviously, their defense struggled again yesterday. Um, Trevor Lawrence, a few self-inflicted mistakes kind of cost them that game, but we'll see how it goes over the next few weeks. It's definitely going to be an eye I want to watch. I want to watch how Jake Browning does over the next few weeks and how Zach Taylor, takes this news and takes this team over the next few weeks.
yeah, and we'll talk about this later, but they do play Minnesota on the road next week, so that would be the first test for Jake Browning in that offense against also right now at the moment struggling Minnesota defense. So we'll see, but we'll talk about that later. And like you said, talking about all the injuries that Joe Burrow has faced so far, um, it I looked at it and I think he has so far he's had four major injuries. He's had that ACL injury throughout his rookie year, missing all of that. He had a wrist injury last year, or not last year, but I think throughout the
Torn
2023
ligament.
season,
Yep. Torn
tore
ligament.
ligament, yeah. And then he had a calf injury, and then now this toe injury that's keeping him out for the majority of the year. So, and when, and this, I feel like this all goes back to that draft where they drafted Chase over protection when you had the chance to get Penei Sewell, who is now one of the top tackles in the league, and is really solidifying as you know it's like one of those things where okay, you got the superstar receiver, you got your best friend out of LSU, and but it also leads to something else, a negative, in which no protection. You haven't been able to get that throughout his entire tenure so far with Cincinnati, and that's something a lot of Bengals fans and people in general are looking at and like, cool, you got Chase, you're going to score all the points. You went to the Super Bowl your first year, but how did you lose that Super Bowl? No protection whatsoever. The O line did not hold up. And that's kind of been the story throughout his entire career so far with Cincinnati. It's always going to come back to protection and, not beefing up the O line. And so I feel like that really just that plays a big factor into a lot of his injuries. Just the O line has not been good at all whatsoever. When they signed Orlando Brown, I thought that was a moment there where they were like serious about upgrading the O line. Orlando Brown, former Pro Bowler, all that stuff. When he came in from the Chiefs, that was something that I thought was gonna be beneficial towards Burrow and whatnot. But obviously, that's not been the case so far, and so it's still very early in the season. They can make some moves or whatever, up until the trade deadline or whatever, whenever that comes. But we'll see what happens. So, but this is just one of those things where it sucks to lose a major, star quarterback in Joe Burrow to this kind of injury. Um, and so, but we're just gonna see where it goes from there. Again, take on Minnesota next week. So we'll see what happens there. Next game that we'll be talking about is
Minnesota. Just to add on to
yeah,
that, Minnesota also is going to be without their quarterback for a few weeks. It was reported today
yep,
that J.J. McCarthy is going to be out 2 to 4 weeks due to an ankle sprain. So that puts in line the former MVP hopeful Carson Wentz will start, is what it looks like. Carson Wentz will start for the Minnesota Vikings. Also, Aaron Jones might be in doubt to play. I don't know if they say he's out or not, but now you lose your young quarterback and Aaron Jones, your starting running back in Minnesota. So that game should be a little interesting. A struggling Cincinnati defense will have to go against Carson Wentz and no Aaron Jones, and then Cincinnati, um, Jake Browning will have to go against, like you said, a struggling Vikings defense. So that should be a game to keep an eye on next week. It'll be an interesting game to watch. But like you said, just got to stay in, watch, and see what Zach Taylor and the Bengals do over the next few weeks.
yeah, you made a great point about the J.J. McCarthy injury, which I didn't even know he was injured until like earlier today. But on to the next game, which is the Chicago Bears taking on the Detroit Lions, the return game for former Lions OC Ben Johnson, who's now the head coach for the Chicago Bears. This game was just not close at all. If you're a Chicago Bears fan, look away. Because
For sure.
it was just one of those games where you thought, you have the former coach now on your side going home and, potentially having a good game. And that just wasn't the case. It looks like it was very one-sided all game. Um, Caleb Williams played very mediocre in my opinion. He struggled so far throughout the first two games of the season. And with Ben Johnson, that's saying a lot because with him coming in, you think you would have that competent coaching to help, the former number one overall pick. And he has the weapons around him: DJ Moore, Roma Dunze, all them guys. But it just hasn't been able to click so far. And yes, they were going up against a very good defense in Detroit. Um, but still, the fact that it wasn't competitive, a divisional game, you know them very well. I would have liked to see some competitiveness with the Bears. You got playoff caliber coaching staff, and to see them just get outmatched, outcoached throughout that game really says a lot about what they are as a team right now, and where they think they should be according to Ryan Poles. I think I saw a stat earlier today where ever since he made that comment where they were going to run the North, um,
and never give it back.
they're yeah, I think they're like 3-17 since
Yep,
that. So,
they're 3-17
um,
against NFC North divisional rivals ever since Ryan Poles made the comment that when he was hired, he said he was going to take back the North and never give it back.
yeah,
And now they have went through multiple starting quarterbacks. Um, went through a trade with the Carolina Panthers. That stat came out today too. The overall record since for both teams since that trade, I think the Bears only have 3 more wins. So obviously, the Bears think they did absolutely amazing with that trade, but it obviously hasn't turned out the way they thought it would. Um, I'm not very impressed with the Bears, man. I don't know how the rest of the season is going to go, but yesterday was just horrible to watch. Um, not trying to take away from your part of this, but
no, you're
um,
good.
Detroit 511 total yards of offense. That is
Yep,
that is insane. Um, like you said, Ben Johnson comes home to Detroit where he, you know, helped Dan Campbell turn that place around, helped turn that team around. Um, and his former quarterback Jared Goff only threw 5 incompletions. He threw the same amount of incompletions as he did touchdowns. He threw 20. He was 23 for 28 with 5 touchdowns, 334 yards, no interceptions. So shout out to John Morton, the offensive coordinator. He had a lot of haters week one. You obviously lose Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn, both your coordinators. It's never easy to do. Obviously, last time we saw that was um, the Eagles when they lost Gannon and Steichen. Obviously they both went on to be head coaches and still are with the Cardinals and the Colts respectively. Um,
yeah,
but you bring in John Morton as your OC. I think Kelvin Shepard was already there, so they elevated him as the defensive coordinator. Um, and they really quieted the haters this week. I think they really did. Kelvin Shepard, he had that defense ready. Obviously, like you said, wasn't really impressed with Caleb Williams in the offense. They didn't really show me anything. Roma Dunze did show me some stuff. Roma Dunze looked really good this week. I think with 130 yards receiving. No, 7 for 128, 7 receptions for 128 yards for the second year wide receiver. Um, they may have found him a young, talented wide receiver in the top 10 of the draft last year. Um, but Ben Johnson came in looking to, make some noise. He came into Chicago. He waited. For the last 3 years, people wanted him. Obviously, I think the Panthers wanted him at one point. The Commanders wanted him at one point. Multiple teams have wanted and asked for Ben Johnson. Some teams he's declined to even interview for. And obviously, he thought Chicago and Caleb Williams and the Bears were the right fit for him. Um, but obviously, 0-2 start. It's never easy. Your first time head coach. It's totally different than just calling plays. You've seen multiple offensive coordinators go and be head coaches and it not turn out well. Um, so we'll see how it goes as the year goes on. Caleb Williams definitely has to improve. Ben Johnson definitely needs to shore up that defense. Um, but just a horrible showing. And Detroit really showed them up. Even had the fans chant "F Ben Johnson." Um,
yeah.
had the defense doing the stumble touchdown from last year that he ran with Detroit. So all around, he looked embarrassed. You can even tell in the post game interview they asked him about Dan Campbell running up the score. He said, what are we supposed to do? You know what I mean? It's 4th and goal at the 5 yard line. They kick a field goal. Dan Campbell don't kick field goals. We have to stop him. And he got a little mad at the question. He got a little mad at the reporter. But obviously, when you lose 52-21 and you return back to Detroit, there's a lot of pressure on you. Um, it definitely took a toll on him, I can tell. And we'll see how he bounces back next week. Obviously, you go back home and you lose like that. It's got to be a target on your back, a little monkey on your back. So you need to get that first win. That first win gets that monkey off your back for a little bit. It gets you kind of settled into Chicago. All eyes are on you. All eyes are on Ryan Poles. The ownership in Chicago is definitely looking really heavy on both of them to see how they, turn this place around. Obviously, the Chicago's been known for winning seasons. I mean, they've won Super Bowls. So Bears owners aren't going to be patient for long. Obviously, Matt Eberflus didn't last long there. Um, they thought he was the next great coach in Chicago. Ryan Poles did, but Ryan Poles has he's got a lot of he's got a lot of people having eyes on him. He's got to show something. He's got to show something to the city of Chicago. They're big about their sports. You got the Bulls, the Cubs, the Bears. They're huge about their sports, man. You have to be able to win in big market cities like that. And Ben Johnson don't look like it so far. So we'll see how he does over the next few weeks. Definitely something we'll come back to over the next few podcast episodes. But 52-21 loss, that's a hard one. That's a tough one. That's a tough one to swallow, especially in what's supposed to be your revenge game. Um, but like I said, we'll keep an eye on them and see how he does. Caleb Williams obviously has to prove something too. Sophomore year, he's got to be able to prove he's worthy of a number one pick. There's a lot of decent, I thought, very talented quarterbacks in that draft. Bo Nix, Drake May. Um, so we'll see what happens. It's going to be definitely interesting to watch over the next few weeks.
Yeah, and also, coming off pretty embarrassing loss against the Green Bay Packers in Week 1, they definitely felt like they had some motivation onto them. They felt like they were embarrassed in that game on both sides of the ball, and then coming into a divisional game, it's never easy playing a divisional rival, and
Never.
so coming into this game, it definitely felt like, just running up the score. It just felt like they were all clicking on everything. And then when you have Chicago and it's just you're on the road in that loud environment, it's also never easy for anyone else. But you would expect some fight or whatever. Um, and I want to go back to your point about Roma Dunze. I've always been high on Roma Dunze. I thought he was a great player. At one point, I thought we, could potentially get him at some point during the draft, during that draft. But I've always been high on him coming out of Washington. Big physical guy, and so I think him and Caleb Williams, that's your wide receiver and QB duo for the future. I think if you really build around that, in which you've had DJ Moore, but he's a vet now. He's a guy that he's been there for a couple of years now. Um, but you have to capitalize on this. You don't have, you're not going to get another DJ Moore. He's been a very good player throughout his NFL career. So I feel like Chicago really has to capitalize on what they have right now because it's better than a lot of rebuilding teams.
Oh, for sure.
Especially when you invest so much in Ben Johnson. I think they gave him like a pretty big chunk of change contract, and
Oh
so
yeah.
you invest that much into him. Um, a lot of fans would expect some good results right away, but I get it. It's a first time head coach, happens to a lot of coaches, so I'm not pressing the panic button yet on Ben Johnson and the Chicago Bears, but like you said, we'll just see how they go on from there and whatnot. So for our next game that we'll be talking about is the Super Bowl rematch from last year, which I thought was going to be the game of the week coming in. You know, Eagles versus the Chiefs at Arrowhead. Um, and I'll start this one off. I think this game showed a lot about Steve Spagnuolo's, in my opinion. I think his defense has taken a major downgrade when it comes to play calls. It does not look like the same defense that has been called for the past couple of years throughout their winning seasons. Obviously, they haven't started 0-2 in I don't know how long, but it's been a very long time. So they're not used to the position. But this defense really has been struggling the past couple of games. Um, and that's just not something that you see out of a Steve Spagnuolo's defense. When you got guys like Trent McDuffie, Chris Jones, and then you have a team with Philadelphia. You've already played them a couple times, so you know what they like to do. You know what they like to run. Um, and so I wasn't very impressed with their defense so far, and I feel like it's even worse on the offensive side of the ball. I feel like they're really missing Rashi Rice, who's out for a suspension. They're really missing him. He was a big part of their offense when he was playing his rookie year and whatnot until he got injured and then eventually suspended. And so they've kind of had to rely a lot on Travis Kelsey, who's getting up there in age. He wasn't sure if he was going to play this year. He was maybe questioning retirement, but they're really relying on him, and he's been able to get open a couple times throughout the game, but he was playing really well until he had that one drop in the um, in the end zone, which led to an interception, and then from there on it went downhill from there. So I feel like this Kansas City offense is just not what it once was, but when you have a guy like Patrick Mahomes who's also struggling and whatnot, it really leads you to question a couple things. One, can he win with a um, less talented roster than what he's previously had? And so far from what he's been able to do in his NFL career, it has. So I feel like, I feel like a lot of Chiefs fans aren't really that concerned as the typical NFL fan would be, I guess, in a sense, because they know what they have at quarterback and they know what he can do. So I feel like, um, but it also, on another sense, losing back to back against the Philadelphia Eagles, a team who we already played twice in the Super Bowl, won against the first time, got blown out in the Super Bowl last year, and then coming in, they coming in on the road to face y'all at home, and then lose. That's something that I know would put a lot of fans down, but also talking about the Eagles, I feel like they're a big story is the tush push. When they ran that play multiple times as they do always, but this game specifically really took it into consideration, like how powerful that play is and how you know unguardable it is because it feels like 100% complete success rate every time. And you have at one point, I think Chris Jones was, talking about Jalen Hurts and how he played throughout that game. He only had 101 yards passing, which is kind of crazy to think about considering what type of player Jalen Hurts is and all that stuff. But that also leans into the run game that they have established. Saquon Barkley had 22 carries. Um, throughout that game. And I think Jalen Hurts had 22 pass attempts. So they really kind of evened it out throughout the run and pass. So that kind of says more a lot about Philadelphia and what they're trying to be. They're that balanced team that they can beat you through the air and on the run game specifically. But overall, I thought it was a pretty good game. Definitely wasn't the game of the week for me, like we already said what it was between the Giants and the Cowboys. But it was a fun little Super Bowl rematch. And so I feel like, will they meet again for, another year? That's in doubt, but it's too early to tell. But that's just what my thoughts are from that game so far. And, I'll let you handle it from there.
Yeah, like you said, Jalen Hurts, not a really big showing this week from him, like you said. Only 101 yards passing, 22 pass attempts, 15 for 22, 101 through the air with a rushing touchdown. Um, Actually, the Chiefs outgained the Eagles by 78 yards. Obviously the score don't show it, and it was a low scoring game anyway. Philly only won 20-17. Obviously, it could have been 24-20 if you count Travis Kelsey catching the touchdown in the end zone. That turned into an interception. Obviously you're not impressed with Spagnolia and his defense right now. I wasn't impressed with him week one, but I was kind of more impressed with him this week. I think his defense showed up when it needed to, holding Philly to 20 points after giving up, what was it, 50 something in the Super Bowl. Um,
Yeah,
Holding
good point.
Jalen Hurts to 101 yards. Barkley only 88 yards on 22 carries. That's not really like him. Obviously, it's a pretty productive day. 22 carries for 88 yards and a touchdown. But they slowed down A.J. Brown. A.J. Brown didn't do anything again this week. Only 4 receptions for a handful of yards. Um, but in the end, Nick Sirianni outcoaches Andy Reid in this situation. He just, him and Vic Fangio, they mesh so well. Vic Fangio is a great defensive coordinator, has been known for a long time. Great defensive mind. Nick Sirianni is known as a good offensive mind. I think they mesh really well together. Obviously, it brought him a Super Bowl back to Philly. Um, but I was more impressed with Spag this week. Spag had we all had our doubts with him week one. Friday night game against the Chargers last week, but I was really impressed with how he looked against Philly this week. I think he really showed that this defense can still be good. Chris Jones in the middle, Trent McDuffie on the back end. They can be good, but they need Andy Reid and that offense to back them up. They need Travis Kelsey. They need Patrick Mahomes. They need Juju Smith. They need those guys to back them up. They need the offensive line to help out. They need Pacheco in the backfield to help out. You know, Obviously, like you said, Rasheed Rice is on a suspension, a driving incident. He's gonna be out for a little bit. Um, I think Thornton can be good. I think Thornton can be a good wide receiver. There was one pass yesterday that was wide open to him, and it was just overthrown a little bit by Mahomes. A little miscommunication, maybe. Um, but like you said, a less talented Chiefs team this year without Rasheed Rice. You got Hollywood Brown in that offensive scheme. So, look to give him the ball more. Travis Kelsey seems to find the green grass, but he's not the same Travis Kelsey he was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
He has stuff going on outside, but he's also getting up in age. He's 30. I want to say 34, 35. He's up in age. He's in his mid 30s. So you have to figure out who can help you out on offense. Patrick Mahomes is still young. I think he can still win more Super Bowls, but starting 0-2 is, like you said, not what the Chiefs are used to being. Um, there's a few teams in that AFC West that are looking to dethrone them. I think the Broncos are going to be good all year. Lost on a little weird. They said, some people were upset about the penalty or whatever. They lost on a field goal. It was a close game, but Denver's going to be good. Sean Payton's going to be good out there in Denver. Of course, the Chargers beat them week one. They're going to be good, and then even Geno Smith and the Raiders could make some noise out there in the AFC West. So um, we'll see how it goes over the next few weeks. The Chiefs definitely have to bounce back next week. You don't want to see them go 0-3. The Chiefs don't know how it feels to be 0-2, let alone 0-3. So um, just look for Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs to kind of rejuvenate. Andy Reid's got to get in there and figure out what works well. You obviously have a depleted little bit wide receiver room, um, but you still have Patrick Mahomes. Let's not doubt Patrick Mahomes. He's a great quarterback, probably one of the best of our generation. So we'll keep an eye on them just like we will on other teams, but. It's weird, like you said, to see Patrick Mahomes 0-2. That's not something we're used to, especially a three-time Super Bowl winner and a very good quarterback. So, hoping to see him bounce back. You don't want to see a guy like that go 0-3 for sure.
So would you say you're way more concerned about the Chiefs offense going forward throughout the year instead of their defense?
Oh, for sure. I think so right now, just because, like you said, Rasheed Rice is going to be out for a little bit. So, you're really dependent on young guys like Thornton and Hollywood Brown, guys who, would be maybe a wide receiver 3 and 4 on other teams. They're going to have to be your wide receiver 1 and 2. They're going to have to be guys to get involved. Travis Kelsey is mid 30s, like you said, was contemplating retirement last year. This could be his last year, his last time in the saddle. So we'll see what happens. I'm more concerned about Andy Reid in the offense than I am Spag in the defense, just because I think Spag has those guys that can help him out. Like you said, Trent McDuffie in the secondary, Chris Jones holding down the D line. Um, I think I don't want to say that I'm concerned about the Chiefs' offense, um, because obviously I never doubt Patrick Mahomes. Obviously, he can show up any given day and do some crazy stuff. make crazy throws, make crazy plays, lead a team. Like you said, he's led depleted teams before. This ain't nothing new for him. But I don't want to hit the panic button. Yes, only week 2. Yes, 15 more games to go, but definitely going to have to pick it up soon. You're already 0-1 in division in the AFC West, losing week 1 to the Chargers. You got the Broncos in that division and the Raiders, two teams that are looking to, you know, make a rise. They all four have good head coaches. Jim Harbaugh is a good head coach. Sean Payton's a good head coach. Pete Carroll's a Super Bowl winning head coach. They've all won championships at the level they've coached. So you got to be able to out coach, and Andy Reid's got to be able to out coach some people, and we just ain't seeing it yet.
Yeah, and it's kind of crazy that we're even talking about this subject, like about the Chiefs being 0-2. Like that's just crazy to think about, and what they've considering what they've been able to accomplish since having Patrick Mahomes under center. Obviously having multiple Super Bowls, Super Bowl MVPs. They're in the midst of a dynasty right now. Um, but maybe 7 weeks from now, this conversation could be completely irrelevant, and they could
For
be
sure.
on this entire winning
Yeah.
streak, and that's just what
6 weeks.
makes them.
6 weeks from now, they could be 6-2, and we're talking about the Chiefs maybe making a push to make the playoff, make the Super Bowl again. So, like I
Yeah,
said, never count out Patrick Mahomes. Like I said, he's probably one of the greatest quarterbacks of our generation. Obviously, we're in our 20s. So, for all the old people who watch this, I'm not saying he's one of the greatest of all time.
yeah,
Obviously, I know there's some very good quarterbacks that have played in the NFL, but in our generation, he's probably one of the best. Obviously, we've had Tom Brady, we've had Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers, Ben Roethlisberger, but 3 Super Bowls under 30 years old is impressive. And like you
yeah,
said, he's done it with some depleted teams, not very good wide receiver cores. He won it a few years ago with Juju Smith as his like wide receiver one target outside of Travis
yep,
Kelsey. So you know, I'm never going to count out Patrick Mahomes. That's a guy that I would hate to be matched up against in a close game. Obviously, he didn't pull it out yesterday, but he gave the Super Bowl defending champions a run for their money. Like I said, he outgained the Eagles by almost 80 yards. So, um, but I'm still concerned about the offense. 187 yards and 16 for 29 is not Patrick Mahomes like. So I'd like to see that get up to, let's say, 26 for 39, and he's throwing for 300 yards and 2 touchdowns, 3 touchdowns. So that's a Patrick Mahomes I'm used to seeing. Obviously, we'll see how it goes over the next few weeks. It was a very good defensive matchup yesterday, Spags versus Fangio. So um, look for the Chiefs to bounce back next week, go 1-2, and try to get some momentum going in Kansas City.
yeah. And again, the Chiefs are like the only team in the league that can really be brought up in this conversation where they can play really bad, but then they could also win, just go on a huge winning streak, and
For
then
sure,
be in contention for winning another Super Bowl. And
for
it
sure,
wouldn't
for sure.
surprise me if they do that. It literally would not surprise me if they do
Oh, it wouldn't surprise me at all. Like I said, never count out Patrick Mahomes. That guy's special. He's a special quarterback. He's a special player. No matter what the haters say or what the doubters say, Patrick Mahomes is still Patrick Mahomes. It's the same guy who took his team to a Super Bowl last year when we didn't think he would. We thought the Ravens would be there. We thought the Bills would be there. We thought there was some teams that could make noise and finally dethrone the Chiefs on the AFC side, but they're still the kings of the AFC until they're dethroned, and
that. Yep.
we'll just have to see how it goes.
Yeah, and it's not like they're getting blown out in these games.
Oh, for sure, no, it's close games.
So
It's
yeah,
just like I said. In the end,
comes down to
obviously,
execution.
Andy Reid's winning against two good coaches the first 2 weeks. You're going against Nick Sirianni and Jim Harbaugh. They're two very good coaches. We're not talking about scrub coaches. These are two good NFL coaches, two guys who have been to Super Bowls, one who's won one who's won a national championship at the college level, been to a Super Bowl at the NFL level. These are two very experienced head coaches who know what they're doing. And like you said, at the end, it's got to come down to execution. It's got to come to who outcoaches who, which coach makes the right calls. They're both, like you said, like I've said before, head coaches calling plays, they got to be able to call the right plays. Andy Reid's calling his plays, Nick Sirianni's calling his plays, and Nick Sirianni just called the right plays at the right time that eventually made his team win by 3 points. So Andy Reid, never doubt him out either. He's a great coach, always has been. So, like I said, expect them to bounce back. I'm not saying that the Chiefs are going to win only 8 games this year. I think they win games, but it's got to be something soon. You got to get some momentum going in Kansas City and just try to improve week by week.
And they play New York Sunday Night Football this upcoming week on the road. So that will be an interesting game to
That is
watch.
actually also fun fact. That is I saw a statistic. That is the first time I think in NFL history that Week 3 Sunday Night Football will be between two 0-2 teams. So
Mm.
expect a very, I'd like to say high scoring game, but I like Spag after this week. Maybe his defense slows down Russell Wilson, but I think it's going to be a very good game. I'm ready to watch it.
Yeah, and yeah, I would agree considering what has happened, this past weekend between the Giants. So definitely a trap game in my opinion for a lot of
For sure. For sure.
yeah,
For both teams.
and yeah, and so now head talking about our main point of discussion for this podcast, what the people came for. The Carolina Panthers coming into Arizona to take on the Arizona Cardinals on the road. And this was a very up and down game, but it didn't pick up until later in the second half, where this game kind of gave a lot of what we were talking about last week. We kind of saw some things that we wanted to see, um, and this was a game that really showed a testament to what Bryce Young is,
Yeah,
um,
for sure.
where you see him struggling in the first half and then pick up in the second.
For sure.
I'm gonna let you talk about your takes and what you saw from this game first, just to get what your thoughts are. But just setting the stage, what um, what's going on throughout that game. So, the floor is all yours, man.
Yeah, like you said, very unwatchable first half as a Panther fan. Obviously gave up a score on the first offensive drive, a strip sack fumble that resulted in a touchdown for the Cardinals. We already started down 7-0, and then we started down 10-0, and then we couldn't get anything going really. Um, went into halftime down by how much was he down by? Was he down by 20 at the
20 to
halftime?
3. 20 to 3.
20-3. So we were down 17 at halftime. At that point, you're like, man, the Cardinals get the ball coming out of half. Can we do anything? Can we stop them? Can we score? Can we do anything? And obviously, Bryce Young showed poise. I'm going to give it to the kid. The kid showed poise in the second half. 35 for 55, both career highs. 35. It's career high in completions, career high in attempts. 328 yards passing. That's a career high as well, with 3 touchdowns and only 1 pick. Um, so very very impressed with his second half. I think he showed poise. I think he showed you what you wanted to see. Like you said, you wanted to see a more confident Bryce. You saw a more confident Bryce in the second half. Um, you take away that strip sack fumble in the first half, first drive, you win the game. I mean, you win the ball game. That's a win right there. So, you look at the protection on that play. Again, Austin Corbett, man. I'm sorry. I know he's injured right
Yep.
now. I know he's injured. I know he's gonna be out for a while. I never will praise an injury for anybody. I never will. Um, but he's in no man's land on that play. He doesn't touch a soul, man. And you cannot tout yourself as this good offensive lineman and this guy who can play the guard position, to play the center position, play all these gadget positions, and then you let your young year 3 quarterback get demolished in the backfield on drive one when he has 3 wide receivers in Jatavion Sanders, Xavier Legette, and Tedero McMillan all open on that play. If you watch back on the tape, I watched it on Twitter. All of them are open, and we have our center 10 yards ahead of the defenders looking in no man's land, just watching. Like that cannot happen, man. We cannot have that happen. If we want Bryce Young to be, if we want Bryce Young to be, you know, confident in himself, confident in his team, confident in his line, confident to lead that team game in and game out, you cannot have your offensive line show that on drive one. You have to come out ready to set a tone. You get the ball first. Let's go down the field. Let's set a tone. Even if it's 3 points, let's go set the tone by scoring points, putting points on the board, and giving our defense a chance to say, hey, ball's in your court. Let's go see what you can do now. But you can't do that when you start with a fumble that results in a touchdown. Now you're down 7-0. Now Bryce is all in shambles. His offensive line is looking at no man's land while he's getting killed in the backfield. Like that's ridiculous, man. So obviously proud of Bryce for what he did in the second half. Only threw 20 incompletions. A lot of them came at the end of like the last drive. It was a weird last drive. Obviously, we recovered the onside kick, multiple flags. Again, offensive line breakdown. Last play, Bryce Young can't get a pass off on fourth down. So with the offensive line last year, that was like I said last week, was ranked sometimes top 10 in the NFL. Um, we got to be able to see them protect our young quarterback. Got to be able to trust them on big game winning drives like that to be like, hey, look, we're gonna go empty here. We need all five of y'all blocking. We need all five of y'all to be confident in what you got back there, confident in your quarterback, confident in the guys around you, that you can make the blocks, that you can make the protection, that you can do what you have to do to win this game. And when you lose by 5 points, it hurts. It hurts when you get sacked on fourth down and lose the game, especially after Bryce did all he could to come back. Hunter Renfro, Tedero McMillan, even Bryson Tremaine. I was very impressed with what them three did yesterday. Even Jatavion Sanders showed up as a young tight end. Um, it sucks, man, to lose a game like that. You don't want to lose on a final drive after you get so excited. Onside kick recovery. You don't see many of those. It's our first one since 2021. 4 seasons we have not recovered an onside kick. Um, great onside kick by Sam Martin, the punter. Shout out Sam Martin. Great job by you, my man. Great job by young Damani Richardson to figure out where the ball is and get on top of it. And just shout out to Bryce Young, man. Shout out Bryce for just trying his best, man. That kid gives his all every game. He's a young quarterback who I think is going to be very good. I'm very excited to see what he does against Atlanta this week. Obviously, we know what he did last week, last year, last week of the season in Atlanta. Probably the best game of his career, honestly. This one was a very good one too. Obviously, career highs in passing yards, completions, attempts, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. That's a pretty good ratio. Um,
Yeah.
But I'm excited to see what he does this week. I'm excited to see what we do. Home opener. It's gonna be a big one. Atlanta's 1-1. They beat a Minnesota team that had a lot of injuries last night, so I'm not really taking that. I'm taking that with a grain of salt, obviously, because your starting quarterback and starting running back get hurt. I'm gonna have to see what you can do over the next few weeks. Um, but I thought our defense looked. It was weird. Our defense didn't look good in the first half, but they also started down 7-0. So what do you expect? They're
Yeah.
they're trying to start from behind. I mean, they're the first time they're on the field, they're down 7-0. So
It's not easy for anyone.
like, what do you expect them to do? They're already down a score. I thought we did good against Kyler. Kyler Murray only 17 for 25, only 220 yards and an interception. DJ Wan with an impressive interception in the red zone that really kick-started the comeback.
Hmm.
Um, Good pressure from Pat Jones to get to the quarterback. Finally, like you said yesterday, when you get pressure on the quarterback, big plays happen. Big things
Hmm.
happen when you get pressure on the quarterback. So, shout out Pat Jones, man. Shout out DJ Warner for making a big play as a defensive lineman. Um, was very glad to see some of the young guys getting involved. Princely gets his first sack of the year. Looked good against the right tackle against the Cardinals. Ransom played 22% of the defensive snaps. That's almost 1/4. Princely played 24%, and Scorton played 40% of the defensive snaps. So, um, very, very impressed with Ejiro this week. I'm not going to say really impressed with Ejiro this week, but really glad he got the young guys in there. They obviously made plays for him. We saw that. People were talking about that on Twitter. You get the young guys in, they made plays for you. But man, it hurts, man. It hurts to lose a game like that, especially when you're just trying to build something in Carolina. You're trying to build some momentum, and it just falls short like that. It hurts.
Yeah. You also can't, shoot yourself in the foot and start the game 20-3, and
Yeah,
then
for sure.
expect to win the game in the end.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
You just can't do that. And so that's another thing that I took into consideration, and it made me feel, a little less upset in the end because, that's just how it is in the NFL. If you shoot yourself in the foot like that, you can't expect to win all the time.
For sure.
There's teams that have come back and do it, but it's very rare that happens, and especially with a young rebuilding team. Just to be in that position, what we were in was very exciting. It got us off our feet. And Buffalo Wild Wings, we had the whole table full of people beside us. They were literally staring at us like looking at us crazy because we were so hyped about,
No, they
you
weren't.
know,
But I don't care, man. It was exciting, man. I just
yeah,
finally am happy to have a little bit of energy as a Panther fan. So hopefully we keep that energy this week against the Falcons. Definitely want to see us go 1-0 in the NFC South. I'll be in attendance, obviously. Season ticket owner, so excited, really pumped. Me and my girlfriend are going. First time she's ever been to an NFL game, so I'm so excited, man.
yes, sir,
It's gonna be awesome. So yeah,
yes, sir. And also just to get back, just to get back to Bryce Young, I feel like when you look at the differences between the style of play, when we're playing slow and methodical, it felt like he wasn't very comfortable. It felt like he just was, just doing the plays, just trying to find the guys open and trying to make the right plays. But then when you look back and you look at his comeback attempt, when there's a sense of urgency there and he's in, you're playing fast paced, that's where he succeeds at best. That's where he is at his best. He dices up the defense. He's making out reads. He feels confident in himself when he's playing fast, and that's just what we saw when he was trying to attempt the comeback late. It was making accurate throws, even though there were some receivers that dropped it. He was still giving them an opportunity to make those plays. And that's just what, as a young team, that we have to learn from is, when your quarterback is putting you in a position to make, good plays, to try to win the game, you have to do it. And there's a couple of those plays, but we'll get into, that later. Um, T Mac, 100 yards off 6 catches, as in the second game in the NFL. I think T Mac is going to be one of the best receivers in the league, soon, because he has all the tools in to become that type of player. Having that first 100-yard game that quick into your career is just very impressive, and that's one thing that we can take from this game is that we have a true wide receiver one that we can finally help, with Bryce. They trained a lot during the off season. Even before that, they trained a lot in California. Obviously, he's from the West Coast over there in Arizona, kind of near that area. So they train a lot together. And it's just nice to have that feeling, with T Mac and Bryce. Um, and so that was really great to see. We praised T Mac a lot, and he hasn't disappointed us yet within his first 2 games. So hopefully he keeps that rolling. And like you said, the young guys getting playtime like Trey Man, Ransom, Prince, who you're very high on Prince. He had a sack, like you said, and you were hyped when he had that sack. You were on your feet, and that's just something that we talked about last week that we hoped Evero would do, playing the young guys, scoring, like you said. And when you play the young guys and they make plays for you, you feel very happy and more confident than, someone that you did not draft and it was not part of the Carolina Panthers, prior to begin their career. It feels way better knowing that as a team, as a franchise, you're developing those players and then they're making plays for you. And when they have that sack, it just feels good when that happens. Instead of a guy like a Jadeveon Clowney or someone like that, like yeah, they made a good play, but they're a veteran in the league, so you're kind of expecting that. But when you have like Prince who's making plays, Ransom, Trey Man who made that one-handed catch in the beginning of the second drive, those are just plays that really give you positive hope as a fan. The more you play your young guys, and so that's one thing I'll give Evero this week is playing the young guys more. So I appreciate him that. Um, but there's also some negatives when it comes to Evero. Obviously, tight ends have been killing Evero's scheme this year so far. It happened last week with I forgot with his first name, but it was Strange from Jacksonville.
Brenton Strange. Brenton Strange.
Yeah, couple of big plays like, last week, and then this week, Trey McBride really killed us. 6 catches for 78 yards. So I feel like Evero really needs to have a game plan to cover these tight ends because there's obviously something there within his scheme that are just allowing these tight ends to, break free and have these big play catches. Trey McBride had a seam route, really busted up the defense right there. And that's just, it's something that he needs to fix. So hopefully that improves. Will it? Who knows with Evero at this point. But
Sure, sure,
I think there was some more, positives than negatives in this game, in my opinion, from Evero, and that's very rare. So
for
I'll
sure.
give him that. Holding Arizona to 7 points in the second half, um, kind of containing Kyler a little bit more. So obviously they made some adjustments there, but you can't blow yourself in the foot. 20-3 in the first half, can't do that. Um, and then talking about Excel, my God, can you not? I'm on the verge. I'm like on the verge, bro. I'm on the verge with Excel right now. I genuinely do not know how he's able to play the way he is. You are a big physical wide receiver. You have the ability to run routes with the best of them, with the best DBs, on you, all that stuff. 8 targets, -2 yards, -2. And then Dave Canales has the balls to come up on the podium and say, "Oh, we're gonna let him, remain getting these reps and whatnot." What? Are you serious? Dude, if there's not anyone in XL's ear right now, then what are we doing with him? Like, because he really killed the offense. I mean, like every time there was a target towards him, it was like it was nothing. We had we
It
had
like killed momentum. They killed momentum. It was
yes,
like
and wait,
you had guys like Tremaine catching 3rd and 19 and getting first downs. You had Hunter Renfro who went 7 catches for 48 yards, 2 touchdowns for a guy who didn't even play last year. The guy didn't even play football last year. He got cut from our team after preseason. He didn't even make the 53-man roster, and he scored 2 touchdowns in one game. And Xavier Leggett had 8 targets and finished with -2 yards. He's only one of 2 players in NFL history to do that. Jamal Charles did it 10 years ago, and he's a running back. You're a 6'3" wide receiver who's supposed to run a 4.5 40. You were touted as getting separation coming out of college. You were touted as being a speedy, big-bodied wide receiver that could catch anything thrown your way, and you can barely outjump a 5'11" corner. It's ridiculous to watch, man. I'm tired of watching it. I'm tired of Dave Canales making excuses for him week in and week out. I hope and I pray when Jalen Coker gets back in this offense in week 5 in 3 weeks that Bryson Tremaine gets the reps. You get Jalen Coker, and why don't just put it somebody like Jimmy Horn in, man? Give Jimmy Horn a chance. He can't be any worse than Xavier Leggett. DeLevon Campbell, he was a waiver wire pickup we picked up after the initial cuts. He's been a healthy scratch 2 weeks in a row. He was a very good. People can look him up. He was a very good wide receiver for the Chargers in preseason. Obviously, rep with the second and third team guys, but he's a big body wide receiver who made plays in preseason, who wants a chance. Why not give these guys a chance? You're finishing with 8 targets, -2 yards. He doesn't even have me and you, who sat in Buffalo Wild Wings and watched the game, had more receiving yards than Xavier Leggett. Are we
yeah.
serious, man? I know we laugh, but it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous to watch. There's no reason you're getting in the history books as the second player in history to do this, tied with a running back who probably caught a screen pass for negative yards, and that's why he had negative yards on 8 targets in the game 10 years ago. Jamal Charles, you're a 6'4" receiver who, on a fade route, trying to go score down the stretch where Hunter Renfro eventually scored, they throw a fade ball, a perfect fade ball by Bryce Young, and you get out jumped by, like, I think it was Will Johnson. I might be wrong, but that's ridiculous. Will Johnson's like 5'11", 6 feet tall. There's
It was
no
either
reason.
him or Denzel Burt.
Either way, it doesn't matter. You're a 6'4" receiver who can't out jump anybody. You can't get no separation. You have no speed. You have no route running abilities. I'm just tired of seeing it. And like I've said, I'm tired of the feel good stories. It's a guy from South Carolina. I don't care where he's from. I don't care if he's 2 hours or 2 minutes away from Charlotte, North Carolina. I want players who can make plays. I want players who can win us football games. We have not won. We have not had a winning record in what, 5, 6 years. It's
Yep.
ridiculous, man. I'm tired of watching a guy who's supposed to be our wide receiver one at one point have 8 targets for -2 yards. It's ridiculous. When Tedero McMillan A guy that came in with separation troubles, is what they said. They said he had separation troubles. He wasn't as fast as Xavier Legette. He didn't have separation like Xavier Legette. He didn't have a route running ability like Xavier Legette. And he had 6 receptions for 100 yards in his second career game. He is ninth in the NFL in receiving yards as of today. Before the game tonight, he was sitting at ninth in receiving yards across the whole NFL in 2 games. I'm just tired of seeing him, man. I'm tired of watching Xavier Legette going to the field every week, and he's a no-show. I'm tired. I'm tired of seeing it from a guy who's supposed to be. Um, we gave him 5 years. We went up in the first round of the NFL draft to get him for 5 years. You, every first round pick gets 4 years and a team player option in the fifth year. We gave him 5 years on a first year rookie deal to have 8 targets and -2 yards. It's ridiculous, man. And like you said, Dave Canales goes into the press conference after the game and makes excuses. What excuse are you going to make for him? You gave him eight
Exactly.
targets. You gave him 8 targets to make plays, and he had -2 yards. How do you catch a screen pass and go -yards? You're supposed to be a 4-5 receiver. You can't stiff arm a corner. You can't break a tackle. Like it's so frustrating to watch, man. Like you can't have Tedero McMillan and Hunter Renfro and Bryson Tremaine make all your plays. There's no reason a tight end. Tommy Tremble had more receiving yards than him. Tommy Tremble. I think Rico
Yep.
Dowd might have had more receiving yards than him yesterday. And it's just ridiculous, man. I'm tired. DJ Wanham had a pick, right? He had a catch for 0 yards. Technically, if you're going to say he had a pick, so he had a better stat line than Xavier Legette. So as a defensive lineman, um, it's ridiculous, man. I'm tired of watching. I know I get all hyped up about it, but it's ridiculous to watch. I'm tired of watching it. I'm tired of making people make excuses for him. I'm tired of him being, oh, he can get the reps still. He can get the reps still. While we have 2 healthy wide receivers that are healthy scratches week 2 and week 1. So you going to sit them guys and let them be in street clothes watching a wide receiver in their group go -2 yards on 8 targets, or are you going to put them in the game and see what they can do? Because Bryson
Yeah.
Tremaine came into the year. Bryson Tremaine came into the year in the NFL this year. In his career, he had -2 yards receiving. -2 yards receiving. And he had 30 yards reception yesterday and a one-handed catch. It's just ridiculous, man. I'm tired of watching Xavier Legette. I'm tired of people making excuses for the kid. Um, you know, cool. He has a cool accent. Is he going to win his football games? No. So, he can ride dollar bill all he wants. He can do whatever he wants on his farm. But don't show up on Sundays and act like you don't know how to play football.
Yeah. And if I'm Jimmy Horn and Trey Maine, I'm pissed because
Oh,
that's
I'm
the
pissed.
dude that's taking up a roster, that's taking up a spot. Like I could, that's showing me that I could easily be outdoing this guy in practice and showing the coaching staff like, look, play me instead of this first round pick because obviously he's not doing the job and he's not, doing what
Well,
he's supposed to.
obviously,
So
well, not to cut you off, but we talked
oh, you
about
good?
Coker. Coker was going to play in the slot. They were going to put Coker in the slot when he came back. Um, nah, man, move him back outside. Put him outside. Put Jimmy Horn in the slot like he's supposed to be. Let Hunter Renfro and Jimmy Horn be in the slot. Coker and T Mac on the outside. Tremaine on the outside. Let's go to work. I'm tired of
Yeah,
seeing Xavier Legette do what he's doing. So um, hopefully Dave Canales can stop making excuses and actually see what's hurting his football team. If Dave Canales wants to keep his job as the head coach of the Carolina Panthers, he'll figure out what's wrong in his offense, and it's Xavier Legette.
yeah, and it's not going to get any easier this week with the Falcons secondary who held down Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen. It's not going to, get any easier for him. So he better tighten up this week because if he has the same performance, we're just going to keep talking about this and hopefully it gets to a point where, Canales has to bench him for the better of the team, for him and better the team because
For
that
sure.
Falcons secondary is no joke, and their defense as well. And so like I saw yesterday, last night, Sunday Night Football, they proved that they're one of the um, you know best talented young defenses in the league. All of their rookie defensive draft picks from this past draft, Jalen Walker, James Pierce Jr., they had a sack. I think one of their rookie DBs had an interception. So their secondary is going to is going to try and give us some trouble this week. So hopefully he gets his stuff together. But it's not. We're just gonna have to keep coming back to this conversation. When is he gonna get benched for the better of the team? And so that's just something that needs to be, brought up more. And also, I want to talk about, you talked about it too. Bryce Young going 0 for 6 on the last drive. We're just talking about the last drive specifically. Last drive, Bryce Young 0 for 6. And like you said, it wasn't a whole lot of his fault. It was just guys just not getting open that time. And we had 4 penalties on Arizona. 4 penalties alone on that drive for them, and we could not do anything. And that was it. Like you can't like if you get 4 penalties, then you're supposed to like they're letting you score at that point. They're letting you score, but we couldn't get anything. We couldn't get no completions, not even one. And on fourth down and long, off a holding play from Zavala, of all people, sacked on the final play, couldn't even get a pass off. Um, that's the main thing that sucked about that part specifically. Like we were talking about yesterday. Like we couldn't even get a pass off, not even a chance. Just the fact that our O line just like as soon as he dropped back, sacked. So that's just something that just sucks in general. Because it would have been different if we could potentially get a pass off, but O line killed us that game. And we also didn't talk about the fact that Robert Hunt is also going to be gone for the majority of the season now. So
I think they said he might be done for the year. Um, a torn
yeah,
bicep, so that hurts, man. Obviously, um, you know, a Pro Bowl guard protection for Bryce is out. Hopefully, maybe we see Brady Christensen go inside. Obviously, Cade Mays will replace Austin Corbett at center, which I'm not mad about. Cade Mays showed great poise as a center last year when Corbett went out, so really not worried about that. The center change. Cade Mays knows what he's doing there. He's done it last year. We saw he did impressive, so not even worried about Cade Mays at all. But I am interested to see what they do at the right guard position with Robert Hunt out now. Is it Chandler Zavala? Is it Brady Christensen? Do they go sign somebody? Do they trade for somebody? That'll be something to keep an eye on over the next few weeks.
yeah. So this upcoming game, against Atlanta. We'll talk a bit more about that here in a few minutes with our week 3 predictions. Um, I think I checked so far earlier today my predictions. I'm positive on this week. Last week I was 8-8. I went 8-8. But this week I think I got another one right because the Bucks just won. So I don't know if you had them winning
Okay,
or
so
not.
I'm wrong on that one. So as of now, minus the Chargers game, I'm 10-5 this week,
Let me double check mine. See.
and we might have to cut the predictions short because my phone's about to die.
Okay, I got you.
So we can
We
always
can.
make another video for that.
Okay.
We can. Oh, you want to do that tomorrow? What time do you get off tomorrow?
We can do like any time, like after like 10 or whatever, something like that.
Yeah, we'll make a quick
Or
segment on that one. We'll make a quick segment on that one. We'll review like the all the week one games and see how we did, and then do our predictions for next week.
all right, yeah, sounds good. All right, man. Well, this was the conclusion of our second episode. Glad to finish up on a successful episode, and hopefully we'll just see what happens this Sunday with Atlanta coming up. So we'll see y'all
We'll definitely talk some more
Monday.
tomorrow. We'll
Yeah,
definitely talk some more tomorrow, and um, I'm excited for next week. I think we'll do all right.
yes, sir, man. All right, man. Thank you, and thank you for all who watched.
Of course. Thank y'all.
All right, man.
All right. Peace.